Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. This is your host, Joe Dellera. We've got a very special guest, like just right over here. But before we get into that, had a big announcement for you guys. If you didn't see it on Twitter or X, I joined the Huddle. So I joined a dub club. I'm going to be working with Matty Chucks, Lord Penguin, and that guy Betts. It's a lot of fun right now. Right now, we are covering pretty much every major sport that's happening. We're going to be covering baseball, football, basketball. There's some soccer going on, hockey as well when that comes into tow. I'm doing some WNBA bets there. The reason I did this was I felt like there was a lot of demand for getting a lot of my plays before the lines moved, especially for the people that were like most dedicated to me, that wanted to follow me and just felt like they couldn't get the best bets in, the best lines in. By doing this, you can join this literally for free right now until September 8th, and then it's going to be $30 a month. But look, you guys see it. Like, we put out plays, stuff goes from like minus 110 to it changes, it goes to minus 180, like whatever. Literally one bet could pay for your whole month here as long as we hit it. And like, you guys know, like, we're hitting it. So it'll give you a little bit more time. It'll give you the ability to follow me, interact with me on a little bit more of a daily basis, see a little bit more of my analysis, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to put the link in the bio here for the Dub Club, for the Discord. And remember, it's free until September 8th. Then we'll do some packages, and I know we're going to be working on a like full season NBA package to kind of give you a little bit of a discount because you guys know that's my bread and butter. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I see now I can actually tap my guest in. Got a very good buddy over here. We've got Matt Issa. Matt, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, but I need to help you here with I want to do a little plug myself. We didn't talk about this before the show, but so I was before we recorded, I was driving home. Me and my buddy, we golfed like an hour away from our house. He was driving. I'm like, yeah, I got to get home. I got a podcast today. He's like, oh, with who? I'm like, my buddy, Action Network, Joe. And he's like, oh, that guy? He's like, that guy hits a lot of bets, man. He's like, because he's big in the gambling scene. He's like, yeah, that guy wins a lot. I need to start following him more. I'm like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's Joe, man.
Now he knows the link to follow me on and get the best lines. So this is perfect. But I appreciate the glazing a little bit, obviously, but now it's my turn. So Matt, for those of you that don't know, because Matt is not necessarily a bettor, but the reason I wanted to get him on is because he's a real hoops guy. Matt is a credentialed professional basketball Writers Association writer. He's official. He's also a fellow lawyer. He works for Forbes, the Analyst, Fansided. He's done a ton of like really awesome major interviews. You see him getting like literally not added by, like NBA Central, whatever. So, like once they're starting to like kind of not credit you properly for your work and then the work goes viral, that's like when it's like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. So it's awesome to have you on. We've been buddies for a number of years now, but we haven't been able to really podcast together for a while, so I'm really excited to have you on. I think it's going to be a really fun piece about what we're looking at this season, the off season, and some of your real like hoops thoughts.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. You don't gotta get me amped up. I'm ready to go.
All right, man. It's going to be fun. So I know you just did a piece and you interviewed Tyler Hero of the Miami Heat. And Tyler is obviously, major player, major piece of that roster. And he talked a lot about how, in like the quote that really went viral was he felt like Miami could beat anyone. Now, I don't know how you feel about that necessarily, but like, I think that it does lead to a greater position of like, we haven't really had a lot of repeat champs, especially recently. And I think that there's a lot of parity in the league right now. Like, do you feel like it is really wide open, or are we in a situation where it's like it feels kind of wide open? Like the playoff race is fun, but like there are definitely some teams that are in that like championship echelon that teams aren't really touching.
Right now it feels that way. Right now it feels the latter, where it's like, to me, I see two teams that are just like, they have the high-end talent, they have the depth, they have the lineup balance to beat pretty much everybody. Here's the thing with the NBA, with the parity thing. The three-point shot is the great equalizer, right? The variance we see in series to series, the Dallas Mavericks against OKC, right? PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr. getting really hot from three. It gives teams a chance in any series, right? We saw it with Miami 2 years ago. speaking of Tyler Hero. But for me, as I look at the team right now, until I see some games played, there's two teams that are just ahead of the rest, and that would be the Boston Celtics and Oklahoma City Thunder. But I see like eight to 10 teams where it's like, once I watch 15, 20 games of you, I can see myself being like, okay, yeah, this team, put them up there with those two. So there is parity for sure, and anything can happen in this league. I never thought the Denver Nuggets were going to lose that Game 7 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they
Oh
did.
my God.
Right?
That was crazy.
And so
It was crazy.
It was great. I was like, halftime, I opened up another Google Doc because I was prepping the Dallas Mavericks Denver Nuggets series.
Yeah. I was like, this game's over. You have Jokic.
Oh, yeah.
It's Game 7. This is done.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So there's always that, but where I look at it right now, I'd say OKC and Boston are the two teams to beat.
I think it's interesting that you say those two teams in particular. Obviously, Boston reigning champs makes a lot of sense. We'll talk about the East in a second. With the West, I'm a podcast junkie. Like when I'm dad, homeowner now, like whatever. I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm either driving, when I'm like holding the baby at 5 a.m, or like I'm cutting the grass, like something like that. And the interesting thing I think about the West is there's some people like you that just come out and you're just like, Oklahoma City Thunder, best team in the West right now. I don't know how you get around it. Then there's other people that like hesitate on that. And they're just like, well, I don't know, maybe Denver, maybe Dallas. I could maybe get there in Oklahoma City. And then like all of a sudden they're just like, well, like Oklahoma City. And like then they kind of start coming around on it. Obviously it's interesting because like they didn't get that far in the playoffs. Like they get through a couple rounds, they get through, and they ultimately lose to the Dallas Mavericks. What is it about Oklahoma City that you feel has like elevated them into the top of the Western Conference?
Yeah, so heading into the playoffs, I was a little bit lower than consensus on the OKC Thunder. I had three big questions. One, youth, right? You got Shea, J-Dub, Chet, your three best players, haven't really, been the headliners for a playoff series ever. I had the question about physicality. Everyone always loves to talk about that when it comes to Chet, Wemby, right? Physicality. Yeah. They're not traditional big men in that sense. And then the other thing was, who's your fifth guy? Who's the guy that can, go in with Chet, J-Dub, Shea? And then I thought Lou Dort was like trustworthy, but he ended up kind of being shaky. But who's the fifth guy who you can trust to not kill you on defense, not kill you on offense, be a plus on both sides of the ball, right? They can never really find that. And what did they do this offseason? First of all, they got battle tested, right? Shea took his lumps, J-Dub took his lumps, Chet took his lumps. They're ready to go now. They know what it's like in the playoffs. They added some physicality. Isaiah Hartenstein, you know him very well.
Tough.
Big physical, tough guy, right? And then they added the best perimeter defender in basketball, who's now an improved 3-point shooter in Alex Caruso. So, like, to me, it's just like all of your issues have been solved, and you didn't pay any tax, not in terms of luxury tax or anything like that. No. I'm sure I don't think they pay any of that either.
No, I don't think they do anyway either.
Yeah, exactly. Soon, but like, you don't pay like you didn't sacrifice anything to get whereas like say like your Knicks, right? They got Mikal Bridges, but they did lose out on Isaiah Hartenstein. Yeah. Not because they got Mikal, but you get the point. Yeah, they had a trade off there.
Yeah, there was only so much they could do. And like when you look at Oklahoma City, it's like you lose Josh Giddey, but like
you win. You win there. You won by
we knew that was an issue. Like we knew it wasn't a great on-court fit. Mm-hmm. So it's like it does make a lot of sense. Especially from like a spacing perspective, whatever. My one hesitation, I guess, with Oklahoma City, and like it's such a like tiny criticism, because when I watch Shea, I think Shea is awesome. I think that I also kind of feel like he's somebody that like lets the game come to him, and it's like he takes the opportunities as they're presented. And like it was funny because like last year it was like a thing. Like you could literally bet on him to score exactly 31 points. Like you could parlay like over 30 and a half and under 30 and under 31 and a half. And it was like hitting at like the most preposterous rate ever. I think he scored exactly 31 points in like almost 20 games out of the 82, which is crazy, right? But like for me, like when I watch Shea, and I watch some of the games. Like there's some games where I'm like begging him to take over a game, and it just doesn't happen. And I don't know, like, if it's like an efficiency thing or if it's just like the way that they're coached, like whatever. But like, sometimes I like watch it and I'm like, I wish like he had games where he went out there and was like, I'm going to score 50 because they need me to score 50. Maybe they don't ever really need him to, but like, I don't feel like I see that level of like takeover. And like, obviously, he doesn't really shoot the three ball that well. So like, when you have a guy like him who I think he gets a lot of his points from the free throw line. He's excellent at that. He's learning to facilitate, I think, better and generate for others while he's also getting his own. Like, it's tough because it's like we keep seeing Jokic as like the MVP or like Embiid as the MVP last year, or not last year, but the year prior. Shea was in the mix this year. Does he feel like a guy that can ever really get to the MVP? Like, can he ever win an MVP? Or is he going to be somebody that's like always in the conversation, but just like kind of like close? Because he never is going to have it. It almost seems like he never has that like monster game that like would catapult him to the top.
Yeah, just as like an aside, I think my philosophy on the whole MVP thing is like, as long as you're a top 3, 4 player in the NBA and like, the narrative's on your side that year, I'm cool with you getting it right. Now with Shea, I don't know if I would have him as a top 3 player in the NBA, top 4 player in the NBA. So I guess what would he add more to his game? I think what you're speaking to, kind of just amplifying what he does now, would probably be the best bet. Maybe being a more consistent jump shooter, getting a little bit more volume, because I think what would probably happen and why he can't eclipse that 31 mark is, my assumption is, defenses packing the paint, keep packing the paint. He's got to settle for, it's not really settling because you're kicking it out to usually good shooters. They have good spacing. But I think it's just about amplifying more. The jumper, I think, is the next step for him. Defensively, I think his style is probably the best you're going to get from his archetype. He's a very big play defender, right? Gets a lot of steals. He's not super like great on ball as a defender. He's not going to be, chasing guys around screens a million times a game. You don't want him doing that. You don't want him exerting himself like that.
You don't want him
it reminds me
either.
a lot of, exactly. It reminds me a lot of Kobe Bryant back in his days. You put him on a weaker offensive player, kind of let him roam around, free safety role, make plays, use his high IQ to kind of be disruptive, his length.
Yeah.
I could see the narrative going in his favor this year, if that's what you're asking me. My narrative guy, I think it's his turn to win it. He finally, broke free, got into the finals for the first time in his career. Everybody's kind of been waiting for him to have that MVP season. I think if I had to put money somewhere, it'd be on Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I could totally see it. Luka's always the guy. Like, he's the favorite right now. He's plus 350. Jokic is right behind him at plus 360. Then you have Shea at plus 550. Luka's the guy that like you look at and you're just like to me, Luka reminds me of like Juan Soto in a way, like to make a baseball like reference where you're just like, this dude is so good. Like, and then you're just like, is he ever going to win? Like, because Soto's amazing this year. Then you have Judge obviously going crazy, Bobby Witt, not to get into the baseball side, but like for basketball, it's almost like you expect the excellence from Luka. And like when somebody else like rises, it's all like, oh, like they're awesome too. And it's like Luka's so good like every game. And I think he seemed to be close. Like to me, I think he's closest. His defense isn't that good, obviously, like on ball, but I think like to say that he's like a bad defender, I think he defends similarly to Jokic, where, it's like their basketball IQ is off the charts and, they're able to like poke, prod, whatever. And you're just like, look, like I'm not going to cover this guy one-on-one, risk getting fouled, exert a ton of energy when like I'm just going to go cook his ass in like 10 seconds on the other side of the court. So whatever, like it is what it is. You mentioned Luka though. And I mentioned Jokic. What do you think about those two teams in the West? Because I feel like it's those two, Minnesota, and obviously like the West is just loaded. But like, what team are you saying like, all right, Oklahoma City's at the top. They're untested to a degree. I think there's a good amount of skeptics about Oklahoma City. What team in the West or what other teams in the West are you saying like? I'd be a little bit more concerned about them. I think they could maybe make a run.
Dallas is remember I said like I need to see 20 games of it. Like if I see 20 games of
Yep.
Dallas and what I envision for them, I'm like definitely put them in there with them. My thing with Dallas, so they come in at the end of the season as that last game against the Celtics winding down, right? It was a blowout towards the end. I was starting to think to myself, I'm like, man, this probably could be very well like a one-hit wonder for Dallas because I'm like, I don't know how they get better from here. They seem like they had very limited
Yeah.
assets to make a move. I just couldn't see any room for upper mobility. But so when you watch that Celtics series, I think the big problem at the end of the day was Boston had more two-way role players, right? So Dallas,
Yeah.
you got Luka, put him in pen, put Kyrie Irving in pen. He's always going to be there in the big minutes. And then, Lively or Gafford, pick your poison for 48 minutes. But those other two spots, I'm like, they had a hard time putting spacing on the floor without sacrificing defense or putting defense on the floor without putting out spacing, right? So
Yeah.
what do they do this offseason? First off, Derek Lively's going to get better. That was year one of the Derek Lively experience.
He's gonna be
Imagine what he
awesome.
can do in year two. He's going to be awesome, right? Kyrie Lucas still good to go. Kyrie's completely bought in. Good citizen right now, by all means. Doing great, right? And so what
Yeah.
do? They flip they turn Josh Green into Klay Thompson. They turn Tim Hardaway Jr. into Quentin Grimes. They turn Derrick Jones Jr. into Najee Marshall. So now you have Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Klay Thompson, Quentin Grimes, right?
Nice.
You're
Yeah.
betting that two of those four guys, because all four of them good defenders, right? Good wing defenders. You're betting that two of those four guys on any given night can hit their open threes. And that's a good bet. I mean, they're not like none of them blow up. Klay Thompson is an incredible shooter. His problem is more age.
Yeah.
But
Klay
Klay
Thompson's the
Thompson,
best bet,
he'll hit
probably.
his
Yeah.
shots, right? And then you have Quentin
Yeah.
Grimes, who you remember very well. This time last year, people are like Quentin Grimes, one of the best young 3-and-D.
He
They
was
were
like
kind of thinking of
untouchable
him.
almost.
He was like
Yeah.
Eastern Conference Trey Murphy III. Small, a little bit less length, right? A
Yeah.
little bit less athleticism, but basically the same premise where he's like this futuristic 3-and-D guy, hits threes, defends, can do a lot of different things on defense, and then attacks closeouts with reckless abandon, right? So now it's like they're betting on two of those four guys on any given night. And that's good odds because it's not like you have two guys, you need them to step up. You have four guys, and it's like, I just need two of you. Two of you to hit your open shots and defend on any given night. And it can be anybody. It could be Klay and Quentin Grimes one night. It could be Klay and Najee Marshall one night. It could be PJ Washington and Klay. So that's why I really like the Dallas Mavericks because they've figured out like the perfect team build for Kyrie and Luka, where it's like Kyrie, Luka, and then whoever's hotter between Gafford and Lively, and whoever's the hottest between the four of Klay, Najee,
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes, and I'm not going to keep listing them. PJ Washington. There we go. But I like that. I like that a
The
lot. And then they
four.
got Spencer
The
Dinwiddie.
four of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they got
Yeah.
Spencer Dinwiddie to top
Like,
it all off.
they added a lot of talent, I feel.
Mm.
And like when you have a guy, like you said, that's like perennial MVP candidate in Luka, you have another guy, Kyrie Irving, championship pedigree, probably
Good citizen.
one of the best good citizen right now, probably one of the best like individual scorers, just period. In the game, right? So it's like you do have a lot of different pieces that can make something work, and like it does feel okay, even though Kyrie's a little bit older. Like Luka's still pretty young. Like Luka's just seems to continue to get better. He seems to continue to add things to his game, and the fact that they weren't in the Olympics this year, they lost in the qualifiers. I think it's better for Dallas, given the fact that they had the long season. He played in the qualifiers, yeah. Like whether he should have played, whether he looked 100%, totally different thing. I get it though for the Olympics. By not going to Paris, I think that might help him, actually get rested, actually show up to camp like healthy, in shape, like whatever. I say in shape loosely, I just mean not hurt. And I think that might be a good situation for Dallas. So I totally understand. Now with Denver, right? Because Denver was a team a lot of us were like last year. It's like, well, we're gonna pen Denver in right to the title game. They don't keep KCP. What do you think about Denver right now? Because it seems like when they don't keep KCP, it feels like honestly that ownership is telling Malone, like just by virtue of not paying him, like, hey, we have to play the young guys, like figure it out. Like somebody's got to play. Like, what do you think about Denver? Because it's tough because it's like you have Jokic. How do you optimize that? And then Jamal Murray looked terrible in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
He looked bad in the playoffs, and then he looked terrible in the Olympics. So like, what's going on with Denver? Is it just like, I feel like if they didn't have Jokic, we'd be looking at the team and be like, oh my God, they have so many issues right now. But they have Jokic, so it's almost like, are they just going to be good enough anyway?
Yeah, Denver's another interesting one where it's like, again, if I see it, I'm good to go. I'm bought in. But like the thing with Denver is, I've heard a lot of people talk about this, a lot of smart people talk about this, but the thing people always mess up here is like, oh, you just need Jokic and Murray. That's what makes the whole thing go. But it's what made Denver so good this last year and, 3/4 of the season, they were falling apart against the Timberwolves, injuries, Murray, etc. Is that 5-man unit. They had, to me, even better than this Boston Celtics starting five. When they were healthy, their starting five is the best balance of spacing, defense, on-ball creation, physicality that the league had maybe the last couple of years, right? Yeah, Murray, Jokic 2-man game, KCP, the ultimate 3-and-D role player, MPJ with his secondary rim protection, movement shooting, improved defensive IQ, Aaron Gordon, dunker spot king, physicality monster, can guard anybody. It just all worked perfectly. So when you lose a piece of that, I don't think people understand the ramifications of that and how much that can do. Like, that's like a Jenga tower. You take a little piece out, it could explode the entire tower, right? So they do have the opportunity to make up KCP. You made a Juan Soto reference. I'm going to go Moneyball here. They can make him up in the aggregate, right? With these young guys, okay?
Yeah.
I wrote a little bit about it earlier this offseason between Strother, Braun, and Peyton Watson. Those three guys are really going to have to step up. I think Russell Westbrook's an upgrade over Reggie Jackson, right? So you get this bursty guy off the bench.
About Westbrook.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how it looks with Jokic, him playing 2-man DHO game, whatever. But I think it's upgrade over Reggie Jackson. I think the goal for Payne Watson is to try and get him to become Aaron Gordon when Aaron Gordon's not playing. I don't think the two of them playing together is tenable just because they're both zero shooters to the defense.
Not enough shooting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be bad spacing. Yeah.
So it's really up to Braun and Strother. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because that's what I was going to say. Like with Braun and Strother, those are the guys that I think are fighting for that 2-man starting role. Mm-hmm. So, like, what do you think there?
The simplest way I can put it is Braun gives you the higher floor for that, just because we know what we can expect from him. He's, solid spot-up shooter, great defender, strong. We've seen him do it in the playoffs, take on big matchups, right? He's familiar with the offense. He's got playoff games under his belt now. But I think for ceiling-wise, and ceiling's what you need to win titles, it's got to be Julian Strother, who comes in and kind of turns into KCP, because I think he was second among rookies in 3-point attempts per 100. That's usually the best way to measure somebody's spacing, not percentage, volume, because great shooters get to take a lot of threes, right? And that's what kind of gets the defense to think, because that's what'll beat you. It's like, people don't understand. It's like, I always see, this is a really common thing on Pistons Twitter, when Isaiah Stewart was in the process of developing a jumper, they're like, if you can just get to 35%, that'll change everything for him. Like, not if he's only taking, it's hard to do, but not if he's only taking 1 3-point attempt per game. Like, even if he's a 60% 3-point shooter at 1 3-point attempt per the game, defense is gonna be like, okay, cool, you hit this 1 3 on us all game. Like, that's not gonna make us change our entire defensive scheme. But if you get a guy like Strother who can take 10 threes per 100, okay, that's like 7 3-point attempts per game or something if you played starter minutes. That's going to be like, okay, we got to guard this guy, right? And so he's a super dynamic offensive player. At least he has the outline to. He showed some second side creation, some closeout attacking. He's got a nice little floater game. He's got some handle. Again, the jumper's nice. The big thing with him, I think he's a willing defender. He's got a nice wingspan. Physicality is really going to be the big thing. People don't really understand this about KCP because he's more of a skinnier guy himself, but he's very strong, very sturdy. I think that's going to be a huge thing for Strother. Even though he moves well laterally, he's got to be able to keep his ground, make sure he can't get pushed by drivers too easily. So when I look at Denver long-term, at least for this season, I'm really looking at Strother. I'm really like, are you ready to go, man? Are you going to be able to give us 20, 25 minutes of high level basketball every night, and then Braun and you can kind of in the aggregate make up KCP. Russell Westbrook, you're going to give us more of a punch than Reggie Jackson theoretically. Now they have Dario Saric too. That's another thing I want to talk about real quick is
Yeah.
now for bench lineups, Denver no longer needs to do the Aaron Gordon, Payne Watson thing. Like I said, the Aaron Gordon, Payne Watson thing seems pretty untenable to me.
Yeah.
But what they can do is go, let's go Saric and Gordon or Jokic and Peyton Watson. Because Saric is kind of like he can masquerade as Jokic, right? He's
Sarge is awesome.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, in theory, right? He's stretch big, can play some passing stuff. He's skilled, right? Kind of
He also,
goofy
we've seen
looking.
him be able to play like and
Hmm.
coexist with another big, because like we
Yes.
saw him, we've seen it in Phoenix to a degree.
Hmm.
He just did it in the Olympics, a little bit in the qualifiers with Croatia, playing alongside Zubac. So like there is, I think, like a little bit of like malleability to Saric, like who seems to finally be healthy again.
Hmm.
And I did like that signing too, but it's like it does feel in a way that it's like you lose KCP, that's a big piece here to lose. And like, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this bet, because I gave this out in the Discord early, so anybody that wanted it could get it. But now we're going to give it out here. And the bet that I bet on Michael Porter Jr. to average over 2.9 threes per game, 2.8 threes per game rather. So to me, he's averaged 2.7, 3.0, and 2.8 threes per game in his 3 healthy seasons with the Denver Nuggets, who play at a bottom 6 pace in the league in each of those seasons. And the reason I think that this swings a little bit is in part because of Westbrook. Westbrook's obviously somebody that runs. Murray plays slow. Murray just generally plays really slow. I think I saw a tweet out there and it was talking about tracking data. And it was that Jamal Murray is literally the slowest player in the NBA over the past like 5 years getting across half court. And if you're going to change anything, I think if you're Denver, I think you want to change that. I think you want to play faster. You're going to have younger guys in Braun, Strother, Watson, and at the end of the day, like your best player is Jokic. If I'm Denver, I want to give Jokic, instead of 16 seconds to figure out what to do with the basketball in the half court, I want to give him 20 seconds, because that defense is probably going to break down. So to me, I think there's going to be probably a couple extra possessions. Maybe it plays a little bit faster, but also like if they do start Brown, which I think that they will at the beginning of the season instead of Strother, he like has to shoot threes. Like I think that he's been a little selective in his shot selection, saying like from 3-point range, basically saying like, well, like I don't need to take this. We have so many good offensive players. We like the ball movement is more important. But like if he's not somebody that's going to take a three, even if it's like slightly contested, I think that it changes the spacing. It's going to change like the geometry on the court for Denver. So to me, I think that even if he doesn't shoot 41%, but if we see an uptick in volume, I think that it's an okay trade given what Denver's kind of looking at personnel wise. So I like him to go over 2.8 threes per game, basically beat his average from last year.
I like that if Braun's a starter, because if it's Strother, you can. So what KCP used to do with Jokic a lot, they used to have a lot of 2-man game,
Yep.
right? Where Jokic should be top of the key, hand off to KCP. KCP takes a dribble, takes a jumper, right? MPJ also had that with Jokic, but he would have to share that with KCP when they were playing minutes together. If Braun is in there, Braun's not really equipped to do that, at least from the 3-point line. So MPJ would, in theory, get a majority of that, right?
Like absorb
Whereas
a lot of it.
if Strother's in the starting lineup, I don't think I like it as much, because Strother can easily run into that just like KCP can. So I guess that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, because my thought anyway was, think similarly to your spacing thoughts with Watson and Gordon. To me, like Braun can shoot a three, but like I don't love a bench unit of Braun, Westbrook, Watson. That's gross. Like I think like the spacing would be bad. Like I don't like it. I think like if in a way, the good way to get Strother more shots might be to put him on the floor with Russell Westbrook and just say like, hey, like run and gun, like figure it out. And then like obviously closing lineups are different, but I think at least to start the season, I feel like Braun's going to be the guy. But that was just my thought anyway. And honestly, at the end of the day, because Strother could kind of fill the KCP role, I think your worst case scenario, I'm basically betting on his average with a little bit of upside.
Yeah, I like that. I hammer
Yeah.
it.
All right. So looking at the Eastern Conference, Boston's still the team to beat, right?
Oh yeah. I do have. Can I say something really quickly about Boston? My
Yeah.
devil's advocate, really quickly on how things could go south.
Yes.
So one of my best buddies, his girlfriend, actually his fiance now. Congratulations to them.
Congrats.
She's in med school, and I remember talking to him and her when the KCP, different KP,
Different game.
Kristaps
KP.
Porzingis, the injury came out in the finals, and she was telling me, and you can sympathize this with OG Anunoby Game 7 against the Pacers. They had him fucking doped up on painkillers like you wouldn't believe. I'm sure he couldn't even feel you if you punched him with how many painkillers he was on. But with KP, the injury he got, very, very serious long-term ramifications. I think him playing through it was not a good idea, right? So I wonder if, and he's had an injury history already. Even last year, he was relatively healthy, still missed 20-plus games. I wonder, I could see a world where he's not healthy next year. He's hurt, whatever, battling something. You never wish that, but I could see that. And then Al Horford's old. He's real old. So he's got to drop off at some point. Yeah. He's older than you.
Yeah, actually.
Sorry. I just you called yourself a dad earlier.
Valid jab.
I had to do it. But I could see a world where Al Horford finally drops off. KP is hurt, right? And you're leaning a lot on Xavier Tillman, a lot on Luke Cornett. That Celtics team doesn't look nearly as sexy anymore if those two are not what they were last year. So that's just my devil's advocate for why the Celtics aren't untouchable in the East. But continue.
No, because I was thinking similarly, right? Porzingis, they're saying like maybe Christmas, maybe January, and then like you don't know, like, and he just is a guy that gets hurt like often anyway. So like even if he comes back fine from the injury, maybe like who knows where exactly they're at come January anyway. You like people kind of forget because of the way the NBA season is and the way like people view the NBA. Like if you're a casual NBA viewer, you start watching in January or like around Christmas time, season's like a third over. Like
we've seen me and you have watched like 200 full games at that point.
Yeah. Like I've watched so many games. You've watched, I know, like so many games and a lot of games from the 80s at the same time too. So I think my thing with Boston, right, was I was looking at this team and I was like, well, you got a lot of guys also playing in the Olympics. You have Tatum, Brown, Tatum, Holiday.
Yeah, watch it.
Tatum didn't play too much, so he should be pretty fresh. But my thought was, it's a longer summer. Like you just don't. And then like they won a title, and like there is a little bit of a championship hangover. Actually, maybe not playing for Team USA kind of like lights a fire under Tatum's ass again a little bit. So it's like that doesn't hit as much, right? But I do have some questions about Boston, especially like when you look at the East, because obviously like I'm a Knicks fan. Everybody knows I'm a Knicks fan. I have a clear Knicks bias, right? To me, New York, what they did, I think they did kind of what the Timberwolves did. The Timberwolves built a roster to beat Denver. New York basically built a roster to beat Boston. Then you also have like Philly, who like there's no real way to say that they didn't get better. Like they definitely like they got better. They get Paul George. They get a million guys. They get Yabusele, which is awesome for them, right? Awesome for him. And then you have, the Pacers in theory should be better. The Cavs, new coach, should be better. The Bucks, maybe Dame isn't hurt as much. Maybe they kind of gel under Doc Rivers for a full year, full offseason, full training camp. What team out of the rest of the East are you looking at, or like what team individually, maybe multiple teams that you're looking at in the Eastern Conference and you're saying, if I had to pick a team that could come out of the East that's not Boston, because Boston fades or Boston does this, whatever, like which team should Boston be most concerned about?
Can I, your listeners aren't going to like this, but can I name 4 teams You just give
Yeah,
a little bit of a spiel on each of them and like
I
let
think
people
people
kind
will
of take
like
with
it.
it.
People will
Okay,
like
okay.
it.
Take what you will with this, right? The New York Knicks are going to be interesting. I plan on writing about them this next week or two because the more I think about it, I think they will give us, this team will give us the concrete answer of, does helio ball actually work?
Yeah,
Because when you look at like heliocentric teams of the past, whether dating back 2009, Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James, James Harden, Luka Doncic, those teams, right? If you look at their role players, like for example that Rockets team, right, with Chris Paul, James Harden, their role players are like Eric Gordon, who fine spacer during his time, good scorer, but
yeah,
not like a D, not a 3-and-D guy. Luke Richard and Baute, good defender, not a good spacer, right? You don't have like these premium role players. You're not getting the true theory of helio ball, which should be one guy, central decision making hub. You surround him with the best role players money can buy, and you let them go to work. The Knicks have probably the best supporting cast the heliocentric stars ever had in Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, who are probably 1 and 2 the best. I know the word role players, weird arbitrary word, because technically every player is a role player. We're all role players in
yeah. Everybody
society,
plays a
right?
role, but
Yeah, we all play
yeah,
a role in society, but like those are the two best role players in terms of the arbitrary definition I've outlined for basketball, right? Is OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo. We've seen what he can do. Josh Hart, you know the deal. Obviously, losing Hartenstein stings, but Mitch Robinson still a starting caliber center in this league. He was having the best year of his career before he went down with that injury early in the season. This is, for what my money's worth, is the best supporting cast ever by a heliocentric star. Just put a pin in that. Well, something to watch there, right? Okay, and then Jalen Brunson's, he's built for battle.
he's awesome. Yeah,
So we got him. Philly, they have a big three, right? With Embiid, Paul George, Maxey. They have nice role players. I love me some Kelly Oubre these days. I think he's a good
oh,
fit
he's
with
been
Nick
so good.
Nurse.
Yeah,
Caleb Martin, guy who knows how to step up in the playoffs for sure. He's taken his lumps. He's battle tested. That's a really nice team. The question with them is going to be injuries when you have Paul George and Joel Embiid on your team. But the theory of that team's really nice. Milwaukee Bucks, right? We didn't get to see Giannis in the playoffs. Dame and Giannis spent a lot of the year trying to figure out how to play together. I think they've got that. They've got that right. They're both coming into the season healthy. Damian Lillard, we heard a bunch of stuff about how he was out of shape coming into the
yeah.
season. Brook Lopez is a little bit old. Fine. I mean, I think his game's going to translate well just because it's predicated so much on his
He's
size
so
and
smart.
shooting.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Size, shooting, IQ, those things aren't going away anytime soon. Chris Middleton looked healthy. The healthiest he's been in that playoff series against Indiana. He got a nice core four. And what did they do this offseason? They made 3 really nice signings for the minimum. Taurean Prince, who I really liked for them. He was my favorite signing.
That was a good signing. Yeah,
Gary Trent Jr., DeLon Wright. And then you have 3 young guys. This goes back to the questions, right? 3 young guys they have on their team right now who played a little bit last year. AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., and Marjon Beauchamp. That's outside of the 2 guys they drafted. I don't know too much about them yet. But my thing is, like, can one of those guys take a leap? Can one of those guys take a leap? And then can the core 4 keep doing what we've seen them do when healthy? And then those minimum signings, how does that all look? Like with Milwaukee, I could see a world where I'm like, this Milwaukee team's really nice, right?
yeah. Because you got
And the
Damian
last,
Giannis.
sorry, yeah, exactly. Damian Giannis, that 2-man games,
Simple.
that's tough. That's a tough one. Giannis, one of the 3 best players in the world. I was talking about guys. I was saying Shea isn't a top 4 player in the world because Giannis is still on this earth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's Jokic, Embiid,
Mm-hmm.
and Giannis. Realistically, like it's
Mm-hmm.
those dudes, and then Luca. Like it's like, or do you
Mm-hmm.
think Shea's better than Luka? Like it's like that's to me what the top 4 is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. It's like whatever. It's a totally different conversation, but like it gets into the Tatum stuff when people are like, well, Tatum's top X, and I'm like, well, it's hard when you have these other guys. So, but
Tatum,
anyway, yeah,
I need to go on a sidebar about Tatum real quick. 2
yeah,
sidebars with Tatum. One is like I've
always,
never seen a guy get more hate for being just the 8th best player in the world.
yeah.
Just the 8th best
It's
player in
so
the world.
funny.
Like there's way worse things you could be in this life than an incredibly handsome dude who is the 8th best basketball player on the planet.
You're right. You're right.
Am I wrong? Right? And then the other
It'd be
thing,
sick.
It is sick, right? The other thing with Tatum, we talked about the MVP stuff. I could see a world where he has the narrative on his side this year. He got disrespected technically. He's supposed to be like, I remember Draymond Green used to talk about him. He's like, when they would play on Team USA, everyone would be like, Tatum, you're up next. Like, you're up next, dude. You're the guy. He gets kind of disrespected, whatever, by Steve Kerr. I don't know how much I really care about that, to be honest. But like, I could see a world where he comes back, reckless abandon. He's a champion now, and he just kind of goes nuclear this season and wins the MVP. But that's just something I wanted to lay out there.
No, I think that's super fair. So who else aside from obviously we know Boston, but like who else has the ability to let Tatum have like a bad year from now on?
The last team, and this is a Matt team. I've had my eyes on them since they went on the run this past winter when two of their four best players were hurt. The Cleveland Cavaliers. They didn't make any real big offseason moves other than the rookie they drafted, who we can talk about in a little bit. Spoiler there. But my thing with them is they're fun for me because they have, like, you need to hit a certain talent threshold, right, to be a championship contending team. The Cavaliers have hit the talent threshold. They have, like, the sum of their pieces.
It's awesome.
That talent is awesome, right? But the problem is it just doesn't fit. And so my thing is I'm waiting. I want to see, are they going to trade Darius Garland for like a 3-and-D wing? Are they going to take one of the big men and trade one of them? Because I feel like if they're like one move away where I'm like, wow, this team is just as dangerous as anybody in the East. They have like nice role players already in play there with like Max Strus and Dean Wade when he's healthy, and Karis LeVert's stepped up in a big way and becoming a role player. So I'm like, if you just trade Darius Garland, if you can find a team that'll trade him and get you like I would have wanted them to get Mikal Bridges. That's no longer a thing, unfortunately. But like, if you can get like a really nice role player in that KCP Mikal Bridges vein, I'm like, man, this Cleveland team, they can hang with the Boston Celtics, especially with Mitchell and how nuclear he goes in the playoffs.
Exactly, because to me, like, Mitchell is an interesting player because Mitchell is like a guy where I look at it and I'm like, I do this one thing where I make a list of players that I think basically I think he's like one of the worst players that you could win a title with as the best player on the team. It like, is that like, it's kind of like a weird, like a funky way to go about it. But like all these teams, like they like that win a title, pretty much like everybody has like an upper echelon NBA player. They have a guy that's going to be like, that can be first or second team all NBA, usually not even like a third team. Like it's got to be like first or second team at some point, could be first or second team all NBA. Obviously that changes every year with like the award, like whatever, like the awards, the eligibility, etc. But like Mitchell is a dude who could easily be like a first team all NBA selection. And I'm always like, they feel like they're right there. But like, it's maybe new coach kind of helps make this all gel to them. So I think kind of what you're saying though, in a way, it goes back to our first point, was that there is a lot of parity in the league. There is a lot of opportunity for a lot of these teams to kind of like come in and make some moves, etc. When you look at the offseason and you look at the ability to like, for a team to jump, to make a big move, to like get better, what do you think was the biggest move of the offseason, whether it was to position a team to contend or whether it was to position a team maybe for the future?
Can I make I know it's bad. I've read on the internet that it's bad conversation to go back to a point once it's been moved on, but I have to.
No,
I can't. Because I came up with a good analogy for it. You know who Donovan Mitchell reminds me of?
Yeah,
Phillip Rivers. Because
that's funny.
No. So listen to this. Phillip Rivers, one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks, right? But he was never. I would never like go and say like Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback than Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, right? Drew Brees.
Yeah.
But on any given night, I swear to God, Phil Rivers could go throw for throw with these guys. He'd go mano with these guys, right? And that's how I feel about Donovan Mitchell, where it's like, I wouldn't take Donovan Mitchell over Shea. I wouldn't take him over Doncic. I wouldn't take him over, name top 7, top 8 player. But like when he's nuclear, like he can go blow for blow with anybody, and that's why I really like that Cleveland team if they figure out the role player situation. But back to your original question. Now that I've gotten that out of my system, bad
I honestly,
conversation.
I understand why you had to get that out.
I just needed to talk about Phil Rivers, man. But I mean, so this is kind of a lame answer, but it's pretty much the moves we've already talked about. I would say with OKC getting Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and the Knicks getting Mikal Bridges.
Yeah. So would you say out of those two teams, the Knicks, and it's interesting because it's like they're kind of intertwined, right? The Knicks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think you have to kind of include Philadelphia a little bit in there. Obviously, you get Paul George, arguably the best free agent in the class, right? Which team do you think had the best offseason? And then which team do you think on the other side had the worst?
OKC had the best offseason just because, like, back to what we said, where it's like you fixed all your weaknesses without having to give up any of your strengths. Now, worst offseason, I think it's the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh,
And
dude, theirs was ugly. Do they have a center? Like, do they have a center?
Sort of. You count Daniel Tice as a starting center, or so. I mean, I could see a world where Messi becomes like the Derek Lively of this class. The people I've talked to said it's not. He's way more raw than even Derek Lively was. Derek Lively had shown flashes at Duke of being a really fast learner. That's another thing. That I don't think Messi flashed at Baylor. He was also drafted like 10 spots later in a weaker class. But with the Pelicans, they remind me of the Cavs coming into this offseason where it's like, again, the threshold, like they're there. They're at, like they have enough talent to be a championship contender. The problem is it just doesn't fit right. And what they needed to do was trade Brandon Ingram for, role players, add some rim protection, add some spacing around Zion, Trey Murphy, Herb, CJ McCollum, who had an incredible bounce back year, one of the more underrated players in the league nowadays. But what did they do? They kept Brandon Ingram, can't trade him, and then got a guy who offensively is a functional equivalent of him in DeJounte Murray. Very, very similar stylistically. Just
the most bizarre offseason of all time.
I'm sure you've seen the tweet that came out when they also don't have centers. Like you said, they lost Jonas Valanciunas, traded away Larry Nance Jr., but I'm sure you've seen the tweet come out when DeJounte Murray got traded to the Pelicans. It was like a picture of DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and Brandon Ingram. Like, who's going to stop this team? And I'm like, spacing.
It's all of us.
Literally, like modern day defense.
It's so like you just can't clog the paint. It's just they don't make a lot of sense. It feels like a team that like has to make a move, but because I think the whole league recognizes the fact that they have to make a move. It's like, how do you make the move then? It's like, I think it's very difficult. Like the one trade that I saw that I was like, I don't know like the actual logistics of it. I thought it was interesting because it was basically Brandon Ingram to go back to the Lakers. And I thought it was an interesting move. I think it's like not an unreasonable fit there. But like it's tough because Brandon Ingram is a guy that you look at and you're like, there's a lot of Brandon Ingrams kind of like, there's obviously not like he's excellent scorer, like whatever, but like it is felt that like what he provides seems to be like replicable. Like, and there's other players that do it that don't cost as much, that like aren't going to cost as much, that like whether it's by trade or by contract, whatever. I think it's definitely a difficult situation for New Orleans to be in.
Yeah, I mean, look at DeMar DeRozan with the Kings. He's on the ball. He's very similar player to Brandon Ingram, a little bit older, a little bit less athletic nowadays. But they got him for $15 million less than what you're going to have to pay Brandon Ingram. And the thing that separates the Pelicans and Cleveland is like the Pelicans are deeper in their hole now because Brandon Ingram's not as desirable. And then even if they get rid of him now, they have like this DeJounte Murray thing. Whereas Cleveland, like a lot of teams would trade for Jared Allen. A lot of teams would trade for Darius Garland. If they wanted to go with the
everybody would trade for Mobley if he was available.
Exactly. And everyone would trade for Donovan Mitchell, but let's hope that doesn't happen. But that's my thing with the Pelicans.
That makes a lot of sense. So, you mentioned some rookies, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
This year's rookie class is very interesting because you mentioned before, it's like, it's a weaker class. And I think that's been talked about often. This was a draft that a lot of teams were like, well, like we don't need to draft in this draft, like whatever, like if we lose a pick, it's not a big deal, whatever. I also think it's particularly interesting when you look at the rookie of the year odds, and like the favorite is not the number one pick. It's not even the
Mhm.
number two pick. It's not the number three pick. The favorite's Zach Edey right now. And then you have Reed Shepard, Risa Shea, Sar, Bazelis, like in order, right? Um, when you look at this rookie class, which rookie are you most excited to see? And then like who do you think has the best fit or like instant impact that can really provide a spark to a team
Most excited to see. This is just for the
for fun? For
entertainment.
fun.
Yeah, entertainment.
Yeah.
Probably. So the only reason I say this, I say it's Dalton Connect. Have you ever seen the movie Roadhouse?
Yeah.
Okay, you remember Dalton, the bouncer, right? I remember I was watching, I was scouting Dalton Connect before the draft, and I was watching like an old Tennessee game. I forget where they're playing. It was a big game though, and he dropped like 39, and his last three hits to put the game away. The announcer, it was just such a sick line. He's like, "It used to be Roadhouse, but now this is his bar," and he was talking about the Tennessee, where the Tennessee Volunteers play basketball. But I was just thinking, I was like, that's just so sick. He's a cool dude. He's funny. I actually ran into him at the combine. We had a little funny
And
conversation, but he's a really cool guy. So
and he's
that's my
older,
yeah.
like a little bit
He's
older.
playing with LeBron, playing with Bronny James, playing with AD, playing in LA. Maybe Jack Nicholson will catch a game. That'll be fun.
I like that play because he was somebody that I was looking at for rookie of the year. He's 10 to
Mm,
1 about it seems like he will have the opportunity because almost because LA like needs him to,
mm.
that like there will be, and also like there's just you're always on national TV. So like if you do have these big games on national TV, you're much more likely to be seen. So I think that makes a lot more sense. So then besides who you're excited to see, who do you think is like the best or is the most likely to really make a big impact on their team, maybe make some noise in the rookie of the year market?
Yeah, I got a couple. We talked about Misi. I think in theory he could be like if he could turn into Derek Lively for the Pelicans, that would be huge, right?
Yeah.
So there's him. They picked him, I think 20th. The center out of Baylor.
He's 200 to
Uh,
1 to win rookie of the year.
200 to 1. Okay, hey man, hammer it. But Reed Shepard he was the standout of the summer league. He was excellent in a game where Bronny
He's so
James, Dalton
good.
Connect were playing. He's a great fit for that team because he gives them what they need, which is spacing, on ball creation. And then they're a great fit for him because of their defensive infrastructure. He's a very talented player. I've heard that he probably has the highest ceiling of anyone in this class. So I like him. Mentioned the Cleveland rookie, Jalen Tyson. So he's an interesting player. I scouted him as well, and he doesn't really have the 3 and D mold to his game, right? He had a good summer league, by the way, but he's more of that bucket getter. He's big, strong, plays at his own pace, good pull up shooter, great in the pick and roll. He could probably guard some like forwards, like in the post with his strength. I'm curious to see if maybe he can shapeshift his game because in Cal, he was playing on a bad Cal team, right? They asked a lot of him. I wonder if he could become like more of a role player, more of a 3 and D guy attacking closeouts. I don't foresee that because again he plays slower, and I think thinking about those 3 and D players, you want somebody like Quentin Grimes who's like just boom, 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 Crash Bandicoot, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So he's an interesting one I'll be watching because if he does hit, that could be huge for Cleveland. And then the other guy, you mentioned him, he's favored to win the Rookie of the Year right now, Zach Edey. The Memphis Grizzlies are my dark horse team in the West. We didn't talk about them,
Same.
but I think that they have the ceiling to hang with anybody if it works. They have a lot of depth, a lot of young talent. And really what they need is Zach Edey to be like a version of Steven Adams. I know they were different players. Adams better passer, Edey's stronger, more of a paint presence, bigger guy. But like if he can come in right away and give them 20, 25 minutes at the center position, allow Jackson to play some four, be a great rebounder, be a great interior scorer, give their team different looks, that could be huge. And he could be, if the Memphis Grizzlies are who I think they are, he could be appearing in some very circumstantial games,
Yeah.
in the conference finals and all that.
I'm with you. My best bet for a win
Mm.
total is the Memphis Grizzlies over. It opened 45 and a half. There's some 46s and a half, 46 and a halfs out there. It's up to 47 and a half at some books. I think they have like 55 plus win upside. That team is really good. And I think that last year they were obviously bad. And like I think people soured a little bit on like Jaren Jackson in particular because like his defense looked like it was rough like last year, I think. But I think in large part it's because he's not really a 5. Like I think he's a 4. You could maybe play 5 if he's playing with a really defensive minded 4, but that's not really what they had. To me, you need him to be like a roamer. You need him to be a shot blocker. You need him to be like a disruptor. And I think that's like what he's best at. Maybe a little bit of individual, but like he fouls too much. So it's like that makes it, I think, a little bit more difficult. But with Memphis, because they like didn't have Ja, and then there were huge stretches where they didn't even have Marcus Smart, they didn't have Desmond Bane, like whatever. All those other dudes, right? They had to step up. Like they had to get better. And when like Jaren Jackson Jr. has never ISO'd more ever, like period. And like he improved, he basically quadrupled his isolation possessions per game. And then he improved on the efficiency. So it's like if you saw that and you'd be like, all right, like this is amazing because like maybe you don't need to go like 6-7 moves deep into your bag anymore because like you were able to really hone like which ones you needed for this particular game, this particular matchup. He's now immediately got way better third or fourth offensive option, but he was being asked to be like a number 1 before like last year because there were so many injuries. So like I really like what last year did. I think the team was young enough that they could all grow, they could all learn from it. And then you have like obviously like Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, etc. Like I really like that team. I think they're going to be so good this year.
Yeah, and that's without even Desmond Bane got better. He got more
Yeah.
looks as the number 1 option, and now he can go back to his number 2 option with even more experience, a bigger bag, right? He's a better passer now, and this is all without mentioning that trio of young forwards they have. So circle back a little bit. At the combine, I talked to a scout for the Dallas Mavericks, and he was talking about one thing. This is when the Dallas Mavericks in the middle of their run. I think they were up like 3-2 in this series against OKC when I was talking to him. And he's like, one thing we've done really well is we've stacked rim protection at each position, right? We're getting rim protection from PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. It's not just about getting it from the center. And with guys like Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams III, Santi Aldama, even Marcus Smart, great rim protector for a guard. You have all these different avenues you're getting rim protection outside of the center position. And then if you're playing Jaren Jackson and Edey together, that's that's like double center rim protection right there with
Awesome.
Jaren
Yeah.
Jackson giving you some spacing. I could see a world where they have the best defense in the league and like a borderline top 10 offense with John Morant and all the new spacing they have and Desmond Bane's improvements. And when you're a number 1 defense, borderline top 10 offense, that's usually a net rating that's high enough to compete for an NBA title.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you.
I would hammer that win total, by the way.
So like, because to me, yeah, that's my favorite bet. It's my best bet of the year in terms of a win total. And they're, to me, the team I think that will surprise people the most. Are we in agreement there, or do you have a different team that you think might surprise people more than that?
No, I think that's the best one right there. And again, we go back to the questions. The big thing with Memphis, really the only question I have is how healthy can they stay? Because if they're healthy, their 10-man roster is very, very strong. It's honestly right up there with OKC and Boston.
Yeah, to me, it's like I think some of it too. Like when you look at it last year, right? You're like they weren't contending. We there were so many off the court issues that were going on. Like there was a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on, right? So like when guys get hurt, it's like, well, like just keep them out an extra week, keep them out an extra 2 weeks. Like I think you get a lot of that because it's just there's no reason to push when this team is a team that looks at the roster and they go, well, like we thought that we were going to contend this year. We were contending last year, so like let's just not hurt anybody worse. Like we'll learn, we'll use it for whatever purpose we're going to try to. But the final like real question that I had for you was there's a lot of players that moved around, a lot of players that I think can get into bigger situations or new roles or like increased roles. And I think it's one of the most interesting markets out there in terms of the most improved player. From a betting perspective, it's bizarre because like we're looking at this like right now the betting favorite is Victor Wembanyama. I think that is fucking insane because like yeah, like sure people are like he's going to be like the best player of all time. Like obviously he's going to improve off his rookie season. Like I just like it's crazy. Like I feel like we've lost a little bit of what the award kind of was. assume like, oh, look, Wemby's probably going to take a little leap. He's probably going to be even better, whatever. Is there a player that you think, or like a player that you kind of want to keep an eye on, that you say like this guy might have a chance for most improved? Like Mobley's a guy that's been looked at saying like new coach, new like a little bit different situation, like maybe he can improve. Josh Giddey, obviously going to Chicago,
I
given
like
the
that.
keys to an offense, could probably improve. And then even like, you know, Emmanuel Quickly in Toronto for a whole year, that type of thing. Or like there's a ton of different players, obviously, right? Is there anybody that you're looking at and you're saying like he's somebody I think I want to keep my eye on, and I think he might actually really help his team improve. Maybe he can make an all-star team, maybe he can make a lot of noise in the league.
Yeah. So one thing, as another aside, big sidebar guy, if you couldn't tell, my thing with I think the most improved player of the year voting is flawed in terms of like it usually just like for example Tyrese Maxey, right? Like
Yep.
he was kind of like he was just like progressively getting better. Like that was like the natural trend. He was just like a young player who improved like you know, you're supposed to get better
He's
as
just
you get
getting better.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like I think the most improved player in my mind, it should be like somebody like Kobe White, who like we kind of thought he plateaued and then he just has this huge spurt and he just, you know, he surprised us all. It's like a shocking thing.
Yeah.
But that's not how people vote, and so that's not how you should bet. With betting, I think one good thing to keep in mind here is like look at the year two players, right? Look at players who were in their second season last year who maybe their numbers looked worse or the same because of shooting variance, right? It's very normal in an NBA season for somebody to have a bad shooting season, even if they're a good shooter, right?
Yep.
You have a little bit of a dip. Okay. And one guy I'm really looking at, Keegan Murray, right? So I've been on him
I like
since
it.
his rookie year. His rookie year, right? I think he broke the all-time record for threes in a season for rookies. He's a
For
very proven
rookies, yeah.
shooter, right? He comes back year two. He's stronger, much better defender. Okay. But nobody's really talking about him and his improvements because he shot 6% worse from three, I think, 5% worse from
Yeah,
three.
he was, and he was bad. He had really bad home road splits. Actually, it
Mm-hmm.
was like
Mm-hmm.
way better,
So
like significantly better at home.
yeah, so imagine if he just goes back to his normal 3-point shooting. All the other stuff he improved last year, like quietly, becomes a lot louder. And the Kings need him now more than ever because they've added another offensive first player in DeMar DeRozan. So they're really going to be leaning on Keegan's defense, his size, his secondary rim protection to help them this year and help, give their team a little bit more balance. Another guy on that team, while we're on the topic, Keon Ellis, really,
He's
really started to
defensive
tick up.
maestro. Yeah,
Yeah, really started to tick up towards the end of the season. Not only is he a great defensive player, right? Great turnover creator, good rim protector for his position, but he's also sneaky, solid offensive player, really efficient driver. I don't have the number in front of me. I think he's like in the 80th percentile in true shooting on drives, which is a good stat for assessing if somebody's good at attacking closeouts. And then he's a pretty good 3-point shooter, shot 41% from three. So I kind of like both of those guys from Sacramento as two guys who kind of under the radar last year. They're going to be more in the public eye with DeMar DeRozan on their team. And their team really needs them because they need guys like that, need strong role players like that. So, again, more Keegan Murray. Keon Ellis is more of just an aside, but I really like Keegan.
I like it, and I mean honestly, like, look, we'll give it out there. I mean,
Mm,
he's 100 to 1 to win this
mm,
award. And I think the big thing for me is like when you look at these guys to win this award, you're right. Like it's usually not going to be a second year guy because you expect a player to improve in their second year. And the other thing is like you're looking for the leap. Like they don't have to be an all-star, but you're looking for like the leap to saying like they're in the conversation or like they're in the conversation for all NBA. Like Brunson didn't make an all-star team before. Was it 2 years ago? He didn't make the all-star
mm.
team, but then he was like, people were like, he's really good. Like, could he get an all NBA? He was getting some all NBA votes, like that type of thing. Keegan Murray, 6'8", 215. Um, Obviously has the pedigree, was on the all rookie team, drafted high, 15.2 points per game last year. Another thing that we're usually looking at is we're saying like, can you score 6, 7 more points per game? It's not completely unreasonable for somebody to say like Keegan Murray goes and starts scoring like 23 points a game. It's a lot. It's definitely a jump for a guy that doesn't have like a crazy usage rate, but at the same time, it's not totally unreasonable to say like, yeah, like he could he can make some noise there. He could definitely start scoring a lot more for the Sacramento team, who has obviously some other options, but definitely needs some spacing.
Mhm. And it's like, I think the big thing that you guys should all think about is the signs are always there with these guys, right? Like if you look back, Tyrese Maxey splits without James Harden the year before last year, super impressive. Or if you look at Jalen Brunson's numbers in the Dallas Mavericks series when Luka went
Yeah.
down, like he looked like somebody could carry. The signs are always there. It's not like something that just kind of happens, right? With these kind of cases of most improved players. So you can just kind of look around, try to see like, or another guy who I don't know if he'd win it just because he did have the big playoff showing, so everyone kind of saw what he's capable of, like Andrew Nemhard, right? Who's,
Yeah.
you look at him without Halliburton on the floor and you see how he's able to level things up with bigger usage. The signs are always there, right? He has that style. He's good ball skills, good in the pick and roll, good floater game, all that stuff. So just that's kind of like the process I'm trying to get people into thinking, even if I can't give you like a surefire name, that's kind of like how it goes.
Yeah, and I think that like some of those guys, like especially in this market,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're worth like darts. Like even if you throw like zero point 0.1 unit on it, guys 100 to 1. Like zero point 0.1 unit's going to win 10 units for you. Like you're in like it's a great position to have. Like I like to add to a portfolio, take some of your free bets, start like you can throw them on some of these long shots because like for me a lot of times what I'm looking at, especially in a market, like I think that this is like a really inefficient market because it overvalues big names that like at the end of the day aren't going to be looked at because they're already supposed to be really good. And like obviously like we've seen top picks win the award, but at the same time it's like Victor to me like just shouldn't be the favorite. I think he's way too good. Like I think that that's an insane I think it's just insane to give this guy the award when you look at what's going on in the league and and people are like, yeah, like he's literally going to be the best player in the world. Like we don't need to give him this award. That's not, especially if he's going to maybe be involved in like MVP conversations, defensive player of the year, like whatever. So definitely think it's going to be an interesting season. Definitely going to think it's going to be an interesting award season. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But Matt, before I let you get out of here, I told you off air, do a segment called Pods and Recs, where we give a recommendation for anything. It could be like whatever you want it to be. And I don't know if you want to go first. I can go first if you need a second to calibrate your thoughts, or like have me give something to test the waters for you. But I'll give you the option to go first or second.
I'll let you go first.
All right. So I'm going to recommend, this is just like a general reminder that Costco exists. And like I went to Costco today and there was one thing that I actually really liked. There was a couple things. I love Costco. Number one, the hot dog, best deal on the planet. I love the berry smoothie. It's one of my favorite things in the world. It's $2.99 and it's like, it's just it's refreshing, whatever. But the actual recommendation that I have is in the frozen section, they have yakisoba and it's like 300-ish calories for like a portion of frozen yakisoba. 3 minutes in the microwave. It's got veggies, whatever. It's good. But like if you get the rotisserie chicken, the cost of entry there, right? Cut that up, throw it over the noodles. You get a nice little meal. It's not bad at all. Gotta recommend it. I just think it's an easy meal. And honestly, like I was very impressed with the flavor profile of the yakisoba. You guys can trust me. I understand that it's not, it's not Korean, but I think that I have a better vantage point to rate it than most of the listeners here. So I recommend it. I liked it, and it really wasn't too bad. It was like 6 portions for like $11 or $12. So $2 a portion, really not that bad, especially for like the ease of access that you had. And like honestly, too, I had it the other night. I was wasted and like had like heated it up, and it was like the perfect amount of Chinese food. It's not even Chinese. I think it's Japanese actually, but it was like the perfect amount of Asian food, like Asian drunk food for me. Those noodles. I attempted it with chopsticks, but like wouldn't recommend for most of you guys. Like just rip a fork, it's fine. So gonna recommend Costco, berry smoothies, and frozen yakisoba. Matt, you're up.
Wait, I have a question. So when you have kids, because I
Yeah.
think I intend on doing that someday, you can still get drunk pretty consistently.
It depends. So like I'm very fortunate. My son, he sleeps like just through the night. Like
Hmm.
it's almost midnight right now, Eastern time. I give him a bath with my wife. We put him to bed. He's literally going to sleep till like 7 in the morning. So like we can kind of do it a little bit. Uh, Most people, I know like a lot of my friends, like they've had kids and like they're like, dude, you just can't, like a kid wakes up every like 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. So it kind of depends on the situation. But like even then, like sometimes we'll rotate, like one of us will get a little bit more like tuned up than the other one. But it's doable.
You're doing this at home? This is an at-home thing?
This is an at-home thing. Like
Okay,
sometimes
okay.
we'll go out, but it's like it's not super often. Like we just went out the other day because we had like one of my buddy producer Corey got married,
Hmm.
so he's on his honeymoon right now. That's why he's not here. But my parents had to watch Luca, and that then we got pretty tuned up. But it was a good time. Great food at the wedding. It was awesome.
Did I tell you I love the name Luca?
You did, and it's sick. It's like it's like a little like because you're spelling it with a C. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. It's a good name. Recommend it.
Yeah. That's a good pods and Rex. So mine,
Yeah.
I was stalling. I'm stalling because I you kind of stole my luster, but I was going in the grocery world
We
too. But
do
I
it.
think
We love grocery recommendation.
you just visit your local supermarket, head over to the little deli section they have, just enjoy some of their sushi. Sushi bowl, you can get a good sushi bowl there, probably like 500 calories. Big bowl fills you up, 50 grams of protein. Tastes just like regular sushi, man. I don't see the difference between like fine sushi cuisine, whatever, and just Kroger sushi. I don't know if there's Kroger's in the East Coast,
There's
but
no Kroger's here. Like we're
okay.
generally ShopRite. If I really want to dabble, I'll go to like a Wegmans or a Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
But like look, I actually I'm not gonna shit on this. I'm with you on this because I think it's fine. Like they have a fish section. It comes out pretty good. And like honestly, it's like the pricing that they charge you for sushi is just out of control. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
completely out of control. And then like I struggle because like I could just eat literally a million rolls. Like
Yes.
there's the limit doesn't exist. And like if I can go to an all you can eat sushi place, great. That's awesome. Like that's exactly what I need. When I order like Uber Eats sushi, I want to fucking die because I order so much and I'm like, is this enough? I don't know if it's enough. And then like sometimes I'll order too much, expecting like my wife to eat more and she doesn't. And I'm like, fuck, like, I'm just throwing this away. And then other times I don't order enough and I got to heat up one of my yakisobas out of the freezer and just to supplement the meal. So it is what it is. But I'm with you on the supermarket, not like the bowl, the sushi. I think the rolls are pretty good and they're a nice little snack.
I like the rolls too. All you can eat sushi. If you go to the Win, you ever been to the Win in Vegas?
I haven't been to the Win, but I've been to Vegas.
Okay, Win Breakfast Buffet Vegas. They have a bunch of sushi rolls. Um, you feel a little bit questionable afterwards, but I mean, when you're getting like, you'd eat like,
Might be the
if you really
hangover.
wanted to, I mean, yeah, you could have like 20, 30 rolls, man. I mean, who's stopping you really? All you have to do is sit through a couple Summer League games after.
Dude, you're just sitting through the summer league games. You're like, I'm so full the whole time. You're just like
Get the
you're trying
meat
to watch like
sweats.
yeah, you're trying to watch Tyler Kolek just pass
Yeah.
like a
I that's
madman,
who
and
I that's who I that was the day Tyler Kolek was playing. I was watching that, and then I
you're
remember he was because he was staying at the Win. We saw him, my sister and I. It's like, who's that? Like because my sister was there. My family came with me to Vegas. My sister's like, who's that really attractive guy? Like right there, he must be a basketball player. I look up, I'm like, holy fuck, that's Tyler Kolek. Like he might not be able to read, Carly. We don't know for sure.
we're not sure, but he's awesome. He's a great player.
Yeah,
Can really
yeah.
pass. So no, I appreciate all of the sushi recommendations. It's been a very cultured pods and recs here. But
Mm-hmm.
Matt, it was obviously a pleasure having you on. This was long overdue. We're gonna have to do it soon again. But let everybody know where to find you, and how to find your work, and what I know you mentioned you have a Knicks piece coming out in like maybe a week or so. Where are we gonna find that?
Next piece, I don't know which publication I want to put it on yet, but just I mean the easiest way to find me is on Twitter. It's at MATISSA15 at MattIssa15. I tweet out all of my articles that are worth reading. At least in my opinion, they might be worth reading.
I think all of them,
Uh,
but it's fine.
but yeah, that's the best way to find me.
All right, Matt. Well, it was a pleasure having you on, and we're just going to try to keep the roll going, whether it's sushi, whether it's betting, and continue to cash that.